Okay, good morning all. So what we'll do is we'll start with the heading Evolution of Indian Administration. Paper 2, Chapter 1. And then because this is a little less theory, then we'll come back to the theory aspects, because directly we can't discuss your comparative administration or all those things. Evolution of Indian administration. We have three topics under this. One is Kautilya. Second one is Mughals. Kautilya means Arthashastra. Again, Arthashastra not as a whole. Whatever is related to which one? Administrative part. Because we have to only discuss about those aspects. Yes, so same how you maintain notes in polity, more same way. If in case you have forgotten or all those things, so please make sure that whatever I'll dictate obviously most of the important things, whatever you feel it as important, whatever links that we try to do, whatever examples we give, you can keep on noting down in the margin, because so that you can go study about it, extra information, all those things. So keep margins in each and every page, so that you can use it for extra ones. Core ones, I'll tell you. Any other, as I said, example, all those things, you can keep noting it down. Fine. So I think broadly, if you can recall yesterday, I have given you a simple overall, the entire public administration as an optional, I have told you the brief. Fine. We are getting into a little more in depth. In general, try to recall what do you mean by administration, as I told yesterday also. Decision making aspects. Management means, in simple terms, implementation aspects. So administration means normally, just keep it in mind, that means you are talking about the topmost people, because obviously they are the ones who will be taking the decisions in general. Today you can call it as what, ministers and the top level bureaucrats, but it varies, because during Kautilya era you will not have the concept of what the elected representatives, ministers, all those things will not be there. Basic point will remain the same. Administration means you are largely talking about the decision making aspects. Understood? Management part will come later, or in other words, management will be at the lower levels. That is the core one. So what we are talking in this one is, because we are starting with paper 2, mostly we are talking about what? Paper 2 entirely is actually about what? Indian administration. So that's why the first chapter is what? How it evolved. Gradually we will come to the present day administration, how it happens. So the past we have to see about that. Obviously in the past, I mean, every empire will have their own, because as I have already told you yesterday also, public administration as a separate study means what? Okay, you have to completely study about that, the theory related to it, or let's say how to get administered. Remember yesterday I told you few aspects related to leadership theories, motivation theories, all of that is new, agreed. But administration itself is not new, because in simple terms, as I told, you go back to any era, Kautilya era, or even much before that also, whenever you have the concept of state, whenever you have concept of multiple people living together, and there is some person called as a king, the moment king has to maintain an army or anything, automatically the concept of what will be there? Administration is always there. Because remember, we keep telling that simple examples, that if you have, which we have seen, what construction of Egyptian pyramids long back, just imagine, can you construct such kind of wonders like Egyptian pyramid without using principles like, okay, someone will take a decision, someone will go there, execute it. Imagine how many people you have to coordinate. Today at least we have that level of technology, machinery, everything. How will you construct Egyptian pyramids? Literally everything is what? Human effort. That means imagine how many humans are involved in that construction. How do you have to manage everybody? Correct, right? If you want to imagine how much you have to pay everybody, how you have to motivate them to get involved, how you have to make sure that everybody works together. So many principles, who should do what. So if you have to tell them you do this level of work, another will do that level of work, someone will do clerical work, someone will do manual work, someone will do technical related work. Everything was already there. But what was not there? theories of administration was not there earlier. Because during that time or for a long time, the focus has always been on what? Theories of the state. As I told yesterday, theories of state means what? Social contract theory, what is democracy, who is a citizen, what is sovereignty, what do you mean by rights, what do you mean by, let's say for example, what do you call as a citizen, only focus has been justice, what do you mean by justice? These concepts have been more. That's what is, as I told, he is largely focus of which subject? Political science subject. Administration has been there. People as the concept of civil servants has always been there. As a study, when did it start? As I told yesterday, who is the father of public administration? Woodrow Wilson. As a study, when did it start? To be more precise, here if you have to say 1887. Understood? Why? Because that again we'll discuss, but in general keep it in mind. As I told, remember yesterday, there was something called a spoils system. What do you mean by spoils system? There was that is spoils of war. Spoils system means what existed in US in simple terms. Whoever becomes the president, what will he do? Entire team he will bring with them. Then where is the concept of permanent civil service? If you are changing civil servants as and when what do you call this? President changes, where is the concept of permanent civil service? Look at today, by definition civil service means what? Permanent in nature. Once you get in, till your retirement age you stay there. Politicians will come and go, MLAs change, MPs change, ministers change, CM change. But who will remain constant more or less? Bureaucrats remain constant, permanent civil service. But spoil system means it was opposite. Along with president, who will also change? Bureaucrats, the team itself will change. Understood? That is how the concept of what do you call this? Public administration as a separate study, separate discipline kind of one started. That will come to it, but that is theory. I'll keep on linking back to theory so that you get much better understanding. Understood? In Indian context, we have to study how administration was there during Kautilyan era. Fine. Or to be more precise, obviously we all know what is Kautilya's famous book, Arthashastra. What has he told about administration in his famous book called as Arthashastra? Understood? Of course, there are so many names for Kautilya also, you know, Chanakya, Vivaswat, like this. So many names are there. So Vishwagupta also they call it, but famously Kautilya. You can call him as Chanakya also or Vishwagupta also, but that's not necessary for us. As of now, let's stick to Kautilya Arthashastra. And yesterday also I have already briefed. Okay, for your time context, if you want to take, sir, what is the time frame of Kautilya, all those things? Obviously, more or less the Mauryan era. Though exact time is not there, they somehow, they are more or less, they trace it to somewhere around. Some people tell Kautilya means, obviously in the BC you have to come back, so they tell 330 BC to 290 or 280 BC, something like that. Take it as around 300 BC was his time frame, Kautilya's time frame. You can talk it as obviously what? Chandragupta Maurya era, all of that, basic points, all of that. Fine, we'll not get into the politics aspect, how he guided Chandragupta Maurya to conquer, to become a king, that's not our concern. That the history people will study that. Fine, or what was the, what do you call this, the entire politics aspects of it, all those things, that's the political science aspect. Our concern is what? What Kautilya talks about administration in his book called as Arthashastra, it is our concern. Understood? And just to understand, keep it in mind, Arthashastra though has been a very old book, so it was actually for a long time it was kind of what? Lost. There was no data, there was no details about it. It was actually kind of what? Not reinvented, you can say, kind of resurrected. It was brought back by a person called as Shastri in early 1900s, 1905, 1906, during that time only, some kind of archaeologist, this person called as what? Shastri. He tried to recover it and then start to understand. Based on their understanding of Arthashastra only, we are identifying, okay, maybe this all he has talked about it in his book. Again, that's a very factual part, that's not necessary. But when you say Arthashastra, Arthashastra is not just one kind of a volume or anything. What they have identified is that there are totally 15 adhikarnas. Adhikarna means what? You can take it as volumes. Volumes, 15 volumes, 15 adhikarnas. Again, you have to understand, today Arthashastra may more or less means what? Economics. Arthashastra, you might have heard, they keep telling Arthashastra. Arthashastra means economy today, but yesterday also I told you, according to Kautilya, here Arthashastra is not dealing only with economics. He is not talking about GDP, inflation, no, those things. Arthashastra means overall about what? welfare, anything that is required for the overall welfare of a human being, of a state, of administration, everything he will talk. In Arthashastra, he is not only talking about administration, he talks about international relations. That's what, remember, I think I briefed you. Sama, Dama, what is Sama, Dama, Danda, Beda, Danda, all of that. So in Mandala theory famously, that means external relations also he talks, internal aspects also he talks. Not just that, he talks about society also. Society means what? Means how marriage should be happening, how divorces should happen, what is the rights of women, what should the relationship, caste, and not caste exactly, he talks about the word called as what? Varna system, so punishments, everything he'll talk. He has not, Arthashastra is not only about economy, it is not only about administration, it is overall about what? Everything related to maintenance of a state. Whatever is required to maintain state. State means what? You understand, right? Broadly. 4 aspects: territory, population, recall that, right? Government, sovereign, everything related to state, he'll talk about it. Fine? Though it's a very, very broader book. But our concern is administration. That's it. That's what we are trying to say. Clear? Yeah. So then he uses the words like tantra, all those things. That's all not necessary for us. Just broadly keep this in mind. Now again, he says that you have to identify 2 aspects first. One is called as Laabha, second one is called as, so kind of obviously you can more or less consider it as a kind of Sanskritized word he uses, because obvious, when you are talking about what, look at the era, 300 BC, kind of those Sanskritized words he has kept on using in his book called as Arthashastra. So in this chapter, I mean with respect to Kautilya, the major challenge that you will face is, you have to remember those keywords. Whatever words he uses, Rakshana, more or less you have a overlap with it today, but a small difference. See, Laabha today means what actually? Profit. But according to him, or what he calls it as in Arthashastra, he doesn't tell Laabha as what you call profit. He calls it as Laabha means acquiring of territories. Means any government, not government, you can say state, empire, should be very good in acquiring territories. Obviously, imagine what you're talking about at 300 BC. What do you have to keep on doing? You have to wage wars, go, conquer, invade, and then get the territories. Because what Kautilya strongly believes is that territory matters a lot. You should have as large a territory as possible, big. And he also says the territory should have as much resources as possible. Because he says, if you don't have enough resources, what you can't do then? You can't manage your state. You imagine you have so many people, but you have very less territory, or you have very less resources. How do you manage? Because he is very practical. Remember, that's why Kautilya is famously called as, he is a pragmatic administrator. He is a pragmatic realist. In simple terms, what you have to understand is that Kautilya, even in the entire Arthashastra, he is never talking about evolution of some theory. Remember yesterday I told you, so Abraham Maslow talks about hierarchy of needs. I told you Taylor talks about scientific management. I told you broader word called as what? We'll come back to all of that. Don't worry about all of this. Classical theories, I told you, recall. I told you there is something called as humanistic theory. Humanistic theory means they'll focus more on what? Humans need. Means what? Remember I told you yesterday that earlier we used to believe that what? Okay, you give money to people, they'll work. It was largely true also. We can't deny it. Even today, because money matters a lot. Nobody is what? Working for a kind of charity or something. But later they realized, okay, you cannot treat human beings as like what? Goods. He is not a machine. He is someone who has his own value system. Someone who has his own emotions. He will not be able to adjust to everybody. He will have his own prejudices. He will have his own expectation. You imagine yourself, let's say you go and work in a company, or let's say you get into civil service. Imagine what all expectations you will have. When you want you to be respected, that kind of authority should be given, superior should treat you with that kind of, what do you call as this, dignity, and all of that you will expect. You want to get promoted quickly, you want to have a responsible position. Fine, so your work should be visible to the people, everything you will expect. Let's say for example, if you are expected to just keep doing your work with no credit, with no incentive, you may do it for 1 year, 2 years, gradually what will you feel? Why should I work? That's why if you have seen in Indian administration, we keep talking, I mean, we're telling this very famously. Unfortunately, Indian administration works in such a way that people who put lot of effort, means for what? Good work, honest work, they don't get any credits. Because you are not supposed to get credit. Because the system works on the principle of anonymity. Anonymity means what? You should just keep doing your work. Any praise, any blame now will not come to you. It will go to whom? Ministers, elected representatives. Fine, you should just keep doing your work. Let us say you contributed to increase in the profit. Even then you will not get any bonus or incentive. Government I am telling, I am not talking about which one. Private sector we are not talking. Private sector works in a different way. Let's say you are very skilled. Let's say the owner gets to know, the founder of the company gets to know that you can increase the profit of the company. Directly what they will do? Directly they will give you good provision. Directly they will promote you. Directly they will increase your salary. How do you do it in government? You can't do it in government because government means what? There are very clear cut rules and regulations. For every few years you keep getting promoted. Just because you are talented, they will not directly make you secretary. That provision, that concept itself is not there. But let us say, for example, you took a very kind of what? Tough decision, like risky decision, and if it goes wrong, they will put all the blame on you. They will make sure that next time they don't give you any kind of position. They will just sideline you. That's why obviously what will civil servant think? Look at the position. You are taking risk. Let's say you are doing honest work, you are working a lot, you are being very, very kind of what do you call this, loyal to the government as a whole. You will not get any major incentives. No major, at least financial incentive is not there. Maybe your boss, means ministers may identify your work, they may give you better position. Agreed. Financial incentive will not be there. But let us say the same thing you do and things go wrong. So they will make sure that what? In the future you will not get that good positions. That's why what will most of the civil servants think? Why should I take risk? Anyhow you are not giving me any incentives. And even if I don't do, salary is obvious. For every few years promotion is obvious. Why should I take risk then? That's what we famously called as, in Indian administration, bureaucrats are risk averse. Risk averse means what? Risk averse means, why should I take a risk? Risk averse. Let's not take a risk at all. Because if you take a risk, it succeeds, you don't get any credit. You take a risk, it goes wrong. What will happen? You are blamed, you are kept out. So why should I take a risk then? I will just continue with what I do. Risk averse attitude of the Indian bureaucrats, we tell. Those are all loopholes. But okay, Kautilya doesn't talk about so much of details because these are all we are talking about it today. This was what I think. These kind of things you have to keep noting it down in the margin because they are not directly linked to Kautilya. While explaining, I will keep linking. Remember, as same polity concept. Whatever extra topics related, please keep noting in the margins. Because this I will not tell you when I discuss about Kautilya again. I am just linking so that you understand it much better. Understood? Yeah, come back. The point is, Laabha means, here Laabha doesn't mean profit. Here Laabha means what? Acquisition of territory. Obviously, you know, king's era. We have to go fight wars, invades, conquest, whatever you call them as. Then Paalana means in general, what do you mean by Paalana today? Paalana means what kind of? Take care of someone. So what do you call as this? Paalana, take care of someone kind of. More or less same. He says Paalana means maintenance of the state. Overall administration of the state. Prosperity of the state. That is Paalana. Understood? So that is what he calls it as that. Right? And then obviously this is the basics. And then this one is, I think, multiple times I have already told you. He also talks about what? He talks about how the concept of king evolved. About it, he has briefly spoken about it. It might be a little more in detail also. For us, let's stick to the brief. Fine. More or less similar to, as I told multiple times, even in polity, I keep telling this if you have heard, similar to kind of social contract theory, though not as detailed as that. Matsya Nyaya in simple terms means what? Law of the sea, law of the fish, might is right. Might is right means what? Strong is always right. Whatever strong has to get it done, they'll get it done. Rich will dominate poor, men will dominate women, higher caste may dominate lower caste, majority may dominate minority, or whatever that is called as Matsya. He says this is how originally society is there. Nature of society. Means remember, as social contract theory says, state of nature. Nature is like this or was like this. Now to escape from this Matsya Nyaya, according to Kautilya, people chose whom as their king? Manu as their king. This is what he says. So that is the concept of king. Now same, what is the role of king then? Obviously, what is the role of king? Protect you from both external as well as internal threats. So to protect it, as I told multiple times, you have to maintain an army. You have to maintain an army, what do you have to do? You need money. Money, or you can call it as what, also kind of what, as I told you, kind. Kind means what? You don't have to pay taxes in the form of money, you can also pay it in the form of crops. Whatever crops you have grown, give a share of it. 1/6 they tell, whatever, in general you have to give a share. Out of that they will maintain the army. So obviously the army will give you all of that production, the king will make certain rules, you have to listen to those rules, abide by those rules. Remember, as social contract theory says, you have to compromise your liberty a little, because if you want to stay in a society, you cannot use absolute freedom. Nobody can use absolute freedom. Remember, in polity, as we keep telling, what do you call this? No fundamental rights are absolute. They are all what? Qualified. Same concept. Your liberty is also not absolute. Qualified. There will be some reasonable restrictions, kind of a one. Though he doesn't talk about all those words in detail, because the concept of rights, liberty, citizenship was not even discussed by Kautilya. Kautilya also doesn't discuss the concept of what? Democracy also he doesn't discuss. See, more or less same time frame you had in Greece people like Aristotle, people like Plato, people like all of them, Socrates, all of them. They have spoken about the concepts of democracy, republic, rights, justice. But Kautilya is also more or less famous to that extent, but he is not a thinker, he is not a theorist, and he never talks about democracy, rights and everything. That's a major difference between, that's why historically if you have seen, or globally if you have seen, people like this Aristotle, Socrates, imagine the level of globally they are accepted. Kautilya is not globally that accepted. Maybe one of the reasons is obviously because Western thinkers will have, because West dominates the world in the last 500 years, their thinkers will get more priority. That is also correct. Two, Kautilya doesn't get major global priority for simple reason what he doesn't talk about. He is not talking about democracy. He is not talking about concepts like citizenship, rights, justice. Maybe if he had talked about that in detail, he would have got a lot of priority. See, Buddha has got global attention, because you see during that time itself he talks about what? He talks about peace, he talks about so many things, he talks dignity and everything. But this Kautilya is a very hardcore, that's why remember we used the word, he is a pragmatic realist, he is never talking about some ideal things. See, for example, Plato also, in his, Plato's is a very famous book is there called as Republic. He says that king should be philosopher king. Though again we will not discuss in detail, in general according to Plato, king is someone who is very well trained in philosophy, who is he has to be very good reader, very good thinker, a Plato, he has to be someone with very good knowledge. This is what who says? Plato says, his concept of philosopher king. Philosophy means, don't take it as in general philosophy, again this is not our concern, that's a political science concern, in simple take it as what? Someone with very good in-depth knowledge, someone who is very good in ethics, values. But Kautilya never talks about ethics of a king or someone who has to be good knowledge only should become king. He will never say that. According to him, king should be someone who can manage things, someone who can control things, make sure that the state keeps becoming powerful. He will not talk about ethics. He will not talk about elements of knowledge or anything. That's why he is a pragmatic realist. Pragmatic realist means, understand, right? He is not talking about ideals or values. He is talking about what? How to manage things in reality. We will not talk about things or ethics. That is his concern, Kautilya's. That's what is related to Matsya, all of that, you know, that's a famous concept. Clear? Then as I told yesterday also, so he says that always, what is the most preferred system? He says always and always it is monarchy. He will not even talk about what? Aristocracy. Aristocracy means what? Aristocracy means top level people ruling, kind of what? Rich, elite kind of one. He will even not talk about it. Or he will even not talk about oligarchy. Oligarchy means what? Oligarchy means multiple people running the system, controlling the things. Remember we keep telling, monopoly means what? Single. Monopoly. One company or one individual controlling everything. A little extension of that we call it as oligopoly. Oligo means what? Multiple people controlling. Fine. So he will not even talk about oligarchy. He says absolutely no, you should give power to one major person. Monarchy. And according to him, king should be someone who should belong to the native territory. Native means what? Local. Remember as we keep telling local. Even in MLA, MP elections, remember every time you might have seen those words. Every time what will they tell? If someone from an outside comes and contests, what is the local? You are not a local. Even today that kind of concept continues. Even he says, king should be someone who is of a native territory. Native means you understand, right? Some who is a belonging to here. You will look at it. For example, even if you know, Sonia Gandhi had a chance to actually become Prime Minister in 2004. Now during that time, the famous or the very strong allegation against her was what? You are not an Indian. She had taken the Indian citizenship, agreed, we are not saying no. But what is she not? She is not by birth Indian. That's why the famous criticism or the strong opponent against her was that if you make her as the PM or whatever topmost position, so she will not be loyal to India. That is an allegation. We are not saying it is truth. That is an allegation, and largely a lot of Indians believe it. Because what do they believe? You are a foreigner. You will never identify yourself with us. You will not have value for our customers. Somehow it is inherent in us. That's human being's instinct. That is what more or less Kautilya says. Which you can't follow it today now so easily. Because what if the same logic applies to which one whom? Let's say Rishi Sunaki applies the same logic. He might be born or brought up or anything, but at the core he is not in English. Today you can't apply some same logic so easily, but still largely it is in reality because I don't have to explain. So someone who belongs to native territory. Two, he says, king should always belong to, king should always be someone of a noble birth. Noble birth means largely you can say someone who belongs to Kshatriya Varna. Because remember, clear Varna system means what? Brahman means someone who is in charge of knowledge, priestly. Someone kind of what? Advisor. Kshatriya means largely what? Kings, rulers, someone who is fighting the war, that kind of a one. And then Vaishya largely is what? Trade, economics. Shudra largely laborers, agriculture labor, whatever. And then someone beyond that they call it as whatever, what is the untouchable kind of a one. That is the typical Varna system he talks about. More or less he says the same. King should be someone of a noble birth belonging to the Kshatriya Varna. And he also says king should be someone who should be trained in both Dharmashastra as well as Dandaniti. Dharmashastra means about what is good, what is Dharma. Dharma means what in general here, not Dharma doesn't mean here religion. Dharma means you can take it as what? Values. That kind of a one. King should be someone who is very well trained in Dharmashastra. Because if you don't have that kind of an inherent value system, you can't manage the system properly. And of course, king should be someone who is very well trained in Dandaniti also. Why obvious? Why should you be trained in Dandaniti? Imagine if you want to maintain that level of a state, if you are not well versed in Dandaniti, how will you control the system? How will you control the army? How will you wage a war? What if someone rebels against you? Even though someone rebels against you, you have to use force, or else how will you run it? All of that he talks. This is the first basics of Kautilya. Got an idea, right? Broadly? Yeah. So let's write about these things first. Please put the heading. And that's what, like as we do normally. Topic by topic, subtopic by subtopic we'll do. If in case you have not noted it down, please note down. 3 major topics are there in this chapter. Noted? Every year you will have 2 questions from this chapter. Normally Kautilya is fixed. Another question they'll ask either about Mughals or British. But Kautilya is largely every year fixed question. Understood? Please put the heading evolution of Indian administration, 3 topics. Whoever has noted it down, not noted, please mention these 3. Fine. Then put the heading then Kautilya. So what is the time frame largely? Yeah, Kautilya belongs to the time period of around Kautilya belongs to the time period of around 300 BC. Around 300 BC. Fine. Then below that, Arthashastra consists of 15 adhikaranas. Keep reading in points. It will be easy for you to recall, also revise. Arthashastra consists of 15 adhikarana. Adhikarana, you take it as broadly what? Volumes, parts. So those keywords you have to remember, kind of Sanskritized, Hindi, whatever you call it as. It consists of 15 adhikaranas. Fine. And what does it talk about? It deals with external administration. External means what? International. It deals with external administration, internal administration, external administration, internal administration, as well as issues related to social order, marriage, etc. Punishments, everything, women related issues, everything we'll talk about it. Fine. Then today Arthashastra broadly refers to economics. Today Arthashastra broadly refers to economics. Today Arthashastra broadly refers to economics. During Kautilya's times, or according to Kautilya, whatever, during his times, today Arthashastra broadly refers to economics. During his times, what does that mean? Yes, it referred to, or it meant, whatever, it referred to overall well-being, prosperity. During his times, it referred to the overall well-being or prosperity of the individual as well as state as a whole. Overall well-being, prosperity of the individual as well as state as a whole. Individual as well as state as a whole. Prosperity, well-being of the individual as well as state as a whole. Clear? That's the point. Then, 2. It includes two components. First one, Laabha. So here Laabha means what? Yes, acquisition of territory, resources, whatever. Don't take it as just profit. But see, but in a way it's linked actually. Profit also means what? Some gain you are getting. More or less same. Acquisition of a territory or resource. That is called as Laabha. Acquisition of territory or resource. Paalana. So Paalana means what? Maintenance of the resources or territory, so that you get overall well-being. Maintenance of the resource or territory. So acquire and maintain it. Fine. That is the first basics. Then what we have to understand that Samashastra, all those things doesn't matter. That's why we're not talking about it. Origin of the concept of state. Just put a subheading. According to Kautilya, how the concept of state originated. Origin of the concept of state. Origin of the concept of state. Fine. Let's link it back to social contracts and then we'll come back. At present, social contract theories At present, social contract theories famously talk about or famously deal with. At present, today, social contract theories famously deal with what? Origin of the state. Social contract theories famously deal with the origin of state. Recall the thinkers, just is kind of a comparative we are doing. Who are those famous thinkers? Yesterday also I mean, even in polity you have to remember always. Yeah, like Thomas Hobbes, though in PubAd we don't discuss in detail, time and again you have to always refer to it. Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, Jean Rousseau. We'll always, over a period, entire PubAd we'll keep referring to it. Though we will not discuss so much of in depth because that is concern of again political science. For us, you have to link it to administration and then deal with it. So Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, as well as Jean Rousseau. Fine. Yeah, what does Kautilya link? Link back to it. According to Kautilya, the original state of nature is based on, society originally is based on, like a survival of the fittest philosophy. According to Kautilya, the original state of nature is based on what? Matsya Nyaya. The original state of nature is based on Matsya Nyaya. So here Matsya Nyaya means what? That is, might is right. Might means what? Strong. Strong is right. That's it. Original state of nature is based on Matsya Nyaya. It means might is right. Law of the sea. Different ways of telling it. Might is right. Law of the sea. That means what? Strong will dominate poor, rich will dominate, strong will dominate weak, rich will dominate poor. So different ways of telling that. Strong dominates weak, rich dominates poor. This is originally, this is how any nature will be there. Any society will be there. Right? Then, to escape from Matsya Nyaya, to go away from this, to establish a society, civilization, order, to escape from this, people chose Manu as their king. To escape from this, people chose Manu as their king. People chose Manu as their king. Now, obviously, logically, then just continue. What is the role of the king then? Yes, king's role of the king is to protect the people. Remember, he doesn't use the term called as citizens. More or less, he refers to the word subject. Remember, I told you subject, citizen, broad differences like that. Role of the king is to protect the people from both internal and external threat. Role of king is to protect people from both internal from both internal as well as external threat. Both internal as well as external threat. Fine. What should the people do then? People should contribute taxes. People should contribute taxes either in the form of cash, money. People should contribute taxes either in the form of money or which one? Kind, that is crops. People should contribute taxes either in the form of cash, that is money, or kind, that is crop. Right? So that is the role of the people. Obviously, then people, what they have to do? People should compromise their liberty. Of course, it doesn't talk about anything related to those words, but generally you can tell. People should compromise their liberty to an extent. People should compromise. People should compromise their liberty to an extent. Should compromise liberty to an extent and abide by, follow and abide by the laws and rules made by the king. And abide by the laws and rules made by the king. Abide by the laws and rules made by the king. So remember that even in to this extent we nowadays don't go in polity. Always remember when you say state, they keep telling this famous statement, state will have monopoly on violence, they tell. What do you mean by state will have monopoly on violence? Yes, only state can maintain army, only state can maintain police, only state can have access to the weapons. Very strict regulations will be there. Only they can punish you. Imagine obviously, let's say you have so many people in power, rich people, can anybody come and punish? Let's say Ambani is there, okay, Adani is there, fine. Can they give any punishments to you? They don't have that power. That power is only there for whom? As largely state. Can Ambani make a rule and so that you abide by it? Why should we abide by it? They don't have any power. Monopoly on violence is only and only for whom? State. Understood? But again, Kautilya doesn't talk about all these things in detail because I have again and again telling you he was not at the core he was not a thinker. He is talking about what? How to manage things in reality. Clear? That is the basics, first level of basics. Origin of the concept of state. Then for the subheading kind of one here, nature of the state. Means what does he talk about? What should be the nature of the state? Nature of state. Nature of state. What it should be always? Contemporaries of Kautilya like contemporaries, more or less same time period. Contemporaries of Kautilya like Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, whatever you call them as. Contemporaries of Kautilya like Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. Contemporaries. What do they talk about? Talk about contemporaries of Kautilya talk about democracy, republic, rights, justice, elections, etc. Talk about democracy, justice, rights, whatever, etc. But what Kautilya says? Kautilya does not discuss about democracy or aristocracy. But Kautilya doesn't talk about democracy or aristocracy. Aristocracy largely means what? If you have doubt in margin, what does it mean largely? Aristocrats means top level people ruling you. If you have the doubt, just clarify in the margin. Aristocracy means kind of top level people, elites, very knowledgeable people, merit oriented people ruling us. The merit oriented will again become meritocracy. Largely you can take it as that. Top level people, elite people ruling us. Another one, there itself you write in margin, what is the other word? Oligarchy. Oligarchy means what? Rule by multiple people. That also he doesn't talk, he doesn't encourage. Oligarchy, rule by multiple people. Oligarchy, oligarchy. Right, so Kautilya doesn't talk about democracy or aristocracy or oligarchy. So according to him, always what is preferred? Oligarchy, rule by multiple people. Fine, yeah, come back and write. According to Kautilya, monarchy is the only form of, what do you call it, the state's rule. According to Kautilya, monarchy is the only form of rule. So he'll never talk about any other things. Whatever, that's the limitation of him. See, today, that point you can't apply it today. See, Aristotle's points, a lot of them you can apply today. How do you apply Kautilya's point that what monarchy is the best form of government? How do you apply it today? It's not even possible to think. But that's a limitation in a way. Understood? So that's what I remember, we keep telling this very famous statements. Every thinker or anybody for that matter is a child of his times, is a product of his times. Means what? See, means whatever Kautilya says was ideas more or less during which time? His time. His time. Lot of those may be relevant today. Lot of those may not be relevant. Right? This very famous statement right in the margin. Every thinker is a product of his or her times. Every thinker is a product, or you can also call it as child. Every thinker is a child or product of his or her times. Every thinker is a product or child of his or her times. So that's why a lot of points of Kautilya are relevant today with few changes. A lot of points you can't even think because the value system is completely different. So that's why whatever someone told 100 years back or 500 years back, you can't. Whatever someone told, see, imagine Kautilya's time is what? 300 BC, that means literally how many years? 2300, 300, whatever, 30 years back. Whatever he told during that time, exactly you can't apply it today, it's impossible. And you can't also say, see, how can Kautilya talk about Varna system? He is very narrow in his thinking. You can't say that today, because what is the point? During his time, it was more or less accepted. So you can't call him as a narrow person. You can't call him as a regressive thinker. The point is that during his time, that kind of thought was there. That's it. See, every major, even if you have seen pre-Second World War, more or less everybody talks about wars and everything, that how to win a war, all of them. Today, no country directly talks about wars, because war is prohibited today post-Second World War. But you cannot say that how can this person talk about wars in 18th century, you cannot say that. Because during that time war was very, very natural, everybody had to do it. Today it's not like that, today it is more or less what? Last option, that too is not even encouraged. But that is not the value system 100, 200 years back. So hence you can't directly apply it. Even if you have seen a lot of, what do you call this value, Gandhi few instances talks about what? He also justifies racial discrimination. See, in a lot of his earlier articles, he has justified Varna classification, class classification. Even in the beginning of his articles, Gandhi did not also encourage intercaste dining. Intercaste dining, we are not talking about marriage. Intercaste dining also Gandhi did not encourage in the beginning of his articles. Later he encouraged intercaste dining. Later he gradually starts talking about intercaste marriage. Later he talked about what? Abolition of untouchability. But even more or less, even at the end of his career also, in the sense end of his life also, he never talked about abolition of caste as a whole. Because one or other way he believed, typical kind of Varna system means what? The world where everybody, that kind of a one more or less I believe that will ensure social stability. But of course, the theoretical tells what? It is not by birth. Anybody who gets knowledge is Brahman, anybody who gets what? Who is very good at work is Shudra. That is very good to tell. In practice you can't apply it. In practice more or less caste means what? Something you get by your birth. That's why there were a lot of criticism. That's why if you have seen Ambedkar criticizes Gandhi very strongly is what? Because Gandhi never strongly argued for what? Absolute abolition he never argued. That's why he very famously criticizes him. But that's again what you have to do. Whatever Gandhi wrote in 1880s and 1890s, you can't exactly take it today. Because again he is also what ultimately? He is also a human being, he is also limited by his times. Let's say you are telling something today, imagine 500 years down the line, how do you think it will be relevant? Things will change very quickly, right? You can't exactly apply. So hence you should not judge Kautilya, you should take his ideas as what he told according to his or her times. Clear? Yeah, so what are we rating? Okay, monarchy is the only form of state, only form of rule, whatever he did not encourage other ones. Then below you clarify, there are words which he mentions. Kautilya talks about or mentions about Dvai Rajya. See, Dvai actually today means what? Two, but he doesn't call it as two. Dvai Rajya, that is rule by Dvai Rajya. Kautilya mentions about Dvairajya, that is ruled by multiple male members of the same family. Ruled by multiple male members. Because remember, as I told, he also says always power should be with the men. Again, how do you apply it today? You can't apply that. But during his time, that was the kind of an agreed kind of a one. Ruled by multiple male members of the same family. Then he also mentions about Vairajya. Vairajya means here what? Ruled by person of foreign origin, foreigner. Kautilya mentions about Dvairajya, that is ruled by multiple male members of the same family. Vairajya, what does that mean? Ruled by a person of foreign origin, foreigner. Ruled by person of foreign origin. And then obviously what he says, he talks about it, but what he doesn't do. However, he discourages both. He doesn't agree with both. However, he discourages both. He discourages both. Because what he says, according to him, Dvairajya will create power conflict. See, multiple male members, if you are giving power, what will they do? They will fight among themselves. According to him, Dvairajya will lead to power conflict. Dvairajya will lead to power conflict. Dvairajya will lead to power conflict. It will create confusions among the people. Means people will get confused. Who should I? Who is my leader? You will get confused. It will lead to power conflict and confusion among the people. And confusion among people. That's why he says, no, never encourage Dvairajya. Vairajya, just now I told you, what does he say? Talks about Vairajya then? Yes, according to him, a foreigner will never be loyal or concerned, whatever. According to him, a foreigner will never be loyal to the land, to the people. Foreigner will never be loyal to the people. Fine? Yeah, so that's why only and only always what? Monarchy. Just keep it in mind. Again, clarify below. What is it? It says who should be a monarch? According to Kautilya, a monarch should be someone. According to Kautilya, monarch should be someone who belongs to the native territory. I don't have to explain all of them. Monarch should be someone who belongs to native territory. Someone who belongs to native territory. Fine. Someone who has a noble birth. Means very good family, very good kind of a top varna. Someone who is of noble birth. In bracket you can also mention it as what? Kshatriya varna. Someone who is of noble birth, that is Kshatriya varna. Then one who is trained in Dharmashastra and Dandaniti. One who is trained in, that means he should be someone who is well trained in Dharmashastra and Dandaniti. Someone who is well trained in Dharmashastra and Dandaniti. Dharmashastra and Dandaniti. Fine? But what you should not confuse with. However, it should not be confused with Plato's concept of philosopher king. It should not be confused with Plato's concept of philosopher king. should not be confused with Plato's concept of philosopher king. Fine, because philosopher king largely means what? That is, king should be, philosopher king means, that's not our concern, but I am just briefing briefly. That is, someone or king should be of what? Good knowledge. That is, king should be someone who has very good knowledge. Or ethics, whatever you call it as. Someone who has very good knowledge and ethics. Always, Kautilya is always what? Kautilya is a pragmatic realist. Kautilya is a pragmatic. Kautilya is a pragmatic realist. He is a pragmatic realist. Fine, means what? What do you mean by pragmatic realist here? That is someone who strongly argues for materialistic possession. Someone who he is not someone who asks you to live a ascetic life, go saintly life. He will never talk about it. He says you have to stay here. You have to be very strong. That is someone who strongly argues for what? Materialistic world, materialistic possession. Someone who strongly argues for materialistic possession. He doesn't talk about what? He doesn't expect king to be a saint or an ascetic. He doesn't expect king to be a saint. That means if king doesn't have expectations, if king doesn't have any kind of power hungry, how you can't stay as king. He doesn't expect king to be a saint or ascetic. Ascetic is largely the same. Someone who is absolutely taken away from the world, who is not directly linked to the world. He says that kind of people you should never make him as king. King should never be, according to him, king should never be someone who is what? A saint or an ascetic. So that is first aspect, what he talks about, who should be king and all of that. Fine. Again clarify there itself below. King should always be concerned about, this is in a way kind of welfare state. King should always be concerned about the welfare of his subjects. King should always be concerned about welfare of his subjects. King should always be concerned about welfare of his subjects. Fine. He should always think about their service, or he should be ready for their service anytime. He should be ready for their service anytime. King should always be concerned about the people's welfare, subjects' welfare, and always think about their service, or be ready to provide service for them. Understood? That is broadly the point. Now, linked to that, directly you can write few points, and then if any discussion is needed, I'll tell you. Again, yesterday itself I told you, for your clarity, write in the margin subjects versus citizens. Remember the difference I told you yesterday? Please keep that in mind broadly, because that clarity you should always have. Fine, yeah, with the subheading, duties of the king. What is the duty of the king? Duty of the king. Duties of the king. Look at the first word he uses. I don't even have to explain. Even today, more or less, it means what? Protection, same. First one is Rakshana. Or some, they also use the word Paripalana, that's fine. Rakshana means what then? That is protection of people from any kind of threat. Duties of the king you are mentioning, under that Rakshana, protection of people against any kind of threats, aggression, whatever. Protection of people against any kind of threat. that is Rakshana. Fine. Then comes your, again look at the broader word how he uses. Yogakshema. Even more or less Yogakshema means what today? Yeah, more that are you well enough, prosper, the same kind of word, Yogakshema, that is prosperity, well-being of his subjects, of the people. Yogakshema, that is prosperity or well-being of the people. Prosperity or well-being of the people. Prosperity or well-being of the people. Right? That is the first two words he talks about. Again below you clarify. Kautilya mentions about. Mentions means talks about. Kautilya talks about compassionate or different words. Benevolent or paternalistic. Kautilya mentions about or talks about compassionate or benevolent or paternalistic monarchy. Compassionate or benevolent or paternalistic monarchy. Right? What does that mean? Simple terms. It means king is like a parent, or king should take care of the subjects like their parents. It means king should take care of his subjects. King should take care of his subjects like a parent. King should take care of his subjects like a parent. Means almost like how parent takes care of a child, more or less king should take care of their people like that kind of a parent. That's why paternalistic kind of parent kind of a one. Compassionate means what? You have to be more concerned about their welfare. That's what extends that point. King is responsible to take care of. King is responsible to take care of the minors. King is responsible to take care of the minors, elders, sick. Take care of the minors, elders, sick, people affected by disasters. That means actually see, more or less in constitution you call it as DPSP and welfare state. King is responsible to take care of the minors, elders, sick, people affected by disasters, etc. People affected by disasters, etc. So that's why largely what is it then? This is the foundation of welfare state. Look at it even today when you say welfare state, largely what does it mean? That the government should take care of people's welfare. See, more or less same concept only. This is the foundation of a welfare state. That means Kautilya actually was in a way referring to welfare state. Though he doesn't talk about democracy, he is referring to what? Welfares. Understood? Because same aspects when we discuss the next topic, that is under Mughals. So a lot of historians have identified that Mughal state was largely what do you call as this kind of a police state. Police state means what? Police state means their only concern was largely collect revenue from people, give protection, make sure that the empire is strong. What he doesn't talk about, Kautilya, largely Mughal kings doesn't talk about what? People's welfare. Only exception as what historians have identified obviously is what? Akbar. Except Akbar, they say more or less any Delhi Sultanate king or Mughal king, according to the historians, there are a lot of variations in that. Largely you can agree, except Akbar or few people, nobody else was concerned about the welfare aspect. They were largely concerned about what? So stability, protect the empire, collect revenue, collect taxes, make sure that everybody follows the laws and rules. Fine, a welfare aspect is not there, but look at it, Kautilya time and again talks about Yogakshema, Paripalana, Rakshana, compassionate, passionate, whatever you call it as, benevolent, all of that. It's the foundation of a welfare state. Clear? But he doesn't talk about democracy. Yeah, that is the point. Then below that again, King should be responsible for below. Okay, another point you can write there itself. In reverse, because you have written that word, which one? Foundation of a welfare state. If you want to reverse, you can say, and in other words, you can say, hence, Kautilya state is not. Kautilya state is not what? It is not a police state or a revenue gathering state. Hence, Kautilya's state is not a police state or revenue gathering state, revenue collecting state. It is not concerned only about it. It is not a police state or revenue gathering, revenue collecting state. It is not a police state or revenue gathering state. Clear? That is another aspect. Then, link back below. King should be responsible for, because you are talking about lastly the duties of the king. King should be responsible for any major appointments. King should be responsible for any major appointments. Means appointing the officials. King should be responsible for any major appointments. Fine. He will also take care of service conditions of the officers. Service condition means you want to understand. What do you mean by that largely? Their transfer or promotion or salary, anything. He will take care of the service conditions of the officers. He will take care of the service conditions of officers. Service conditions of officers. Fine. Whoever is loyal to the king or state, whoever is loyal to the state, or king also you can say, whoever is loyal to the state and increases the revenue of the state, whoever is loyal to the state and increases the revenue of the state, whoever is loyal to the state and increases the revenue of the state should be promoted. That's it. Loyal to the state and increases the revenue of the state should be promoted. Means you should keep on taking to the top. Should be promoted. Yeah. Then below another keyword Kautilya uses. King should be responsible for. King should be responsible for drafting, framing dharma niyam. King should be responsible for the drafting of dharma niyam. So here again, dharma means you should not take it as religion, rules. King should be responsible for drafting of dharma niyam. So what do you mean by dharma niyam means? That is set of rules or regulations for whom? For the officials. Officials here. Set of rules or regulations for officers. Set of rules or regulations for officers. You can actually call it as what? It is similar to today's code of conduct rules. Dharma niyam, that is rules or regulations for the officers. It is similar to today's code of conduct for civil servants. Remember we keep telling All India Service Conduct Rules 1954, that all we have to time and again in PubAd we have to keep referring. In polity I don't refer to so frequently, but here you have to refer that very frequently. It is similar to the code of conduct, today's code of conduct for civil servants. That means what, to be more precise, if you want more specific example, All India Services Conduct Rules 1954, Central Services Conduct Rules 1955, All India Services Conduct Rules 1954, Central Services Conduct Rules 1955. Like that, so many are there. State governments will have their own conduct rules. 1954 All India Service, Central Service 1955. Fine. So it is like that. Dharma niyam means. So fine. He is responsible for all the major appointments. He will take care of your promotion, suspension, transfer, salary, everything, and he will also make rules. And if you obviously violate the rules, what the king can do? King can directly take you out of power also, out of what? Office, out of whatever you call as civil service. That is one. Then next below that, after that, what all does he talk about the, which one, the roles or the duties of the king? Next one. According to Kautilya, preservation, ensure. According to Kautilya, preservation of the social order based on which system? Varna system. Preservation of the social order based on Varna system. Preservation of the social order based on Varna system. Based on Varna system is one of the most important duties of king. Preservation of the social order based on Varna system is one of the most important duties of the king. Means everybody should do their work according to their Varna. You should keep doing that. It is one of the most important duties of the king. Because what does Kautilya say? According to Kautilya, if Varna system is disturbed, then what is also disturbed then? Social stability is disturbed. According to Kautilya, if Varna system is disturbed, then social stability is affected, compromised. According to Kautilya, if Varna system is disturbed, then social stability will be compromised. Then social stability will be compromised. Right? See, this idea you can't apply it today. Obvious, I don't have to even explain. But during that time, you have to take it. And largely, also, what is it? During his time, ensuring that the society stays together itself is a big thing. Even today, social stability is very important because you should make sure that everybody follows certain kind of values, ethics, rules, laws, whatever. Imagine during Kautilya's times when the society or civilization was what? Almost what do you call it? Starting to flourish. During that time, making sure that people live together itself was a big challenge. Hence, Varna system helped in that. You can't justify it today, agreed. But during that time, it had its own role. That's why even Gandhi, to an extent, in the beginning, as I told in his articles, he never strongly argues for what abolish the Chaturvarna, all of that. Maybe because he also had this kind of philosophy that that it was established to create a kind of social stability. It has its own utility. So you can't directly take it out, is what he had also believed. But that's a different issue. We obviously know in the constitution all those things, you can't support that today. But that is one of the one. Then next below that, Kautilya says that king should use Danda. According to Kautilya, or Kautilya says that king should use Danda. Danda means take it as what? Force. King should use Danda or Dandaniti, whatever. According to Kautilya, or Kautilya says that king should use Danda to ensure social stability. King should use force to ensure social stability. Right? To ensure social stability. But what he also cautions? He also cautions that, Kautilya also cautions that. He also cautions that if Danda is misused, means if you misuse your power, Kautilya says that the king should use Danda to maintain social stability. However, what he also cautions, Danda should be used, what do you write? However, he cautions that if Danda is misused, it will lead to revolt by the people. Obviously, people may turn up against you. If Danda is misused, it may lead to revolt by the people. Revolt by the people, or what they may do, or They may involve in a conspiracy with the other empires or kings, or they may involve in conspiracy. Conspiracy means what? Help your rival king. They may involve in conspiracy with other empires or kings. They may involve in conspiracy with other empires or kings. Conspiracy with other empires or kings. In fact, for that also uses words like Kopa, all those words, but all not necessary. But this is all very logical. I don't have to explain this also. If you misuse your power, obviously what they'll do? They only will turn up against you, they will rebel, they may throw you out of power, they may kill also. There's so many instances where people, if you have seen in French Revolution, whenever they happened, people revolted to such an extent that they killed directly the kings and queens. So they will only directly hang the king and queen. That also can happen. Or what they may do, if they are not so powerful, what they'll do obviously? They'll give support to the rivals so that they will come and attack you. That's why make sure that you use your violence in a very cautious manner is what he says. Clear? That is largely what you call as the duties of the king. Then again you can clarify below. Kautilya also mentions about office of manual procedure for the king. Kautilya also mentions about office of manual. Office manual procedure. Office, not off, you strike it off. Office manual procedure. Kautilya talks about the office manual procedure. Right? What does that mean? That is what the king should do in a particular day. Manual of office procedure. That is office manual procedure. That is the duties of a king in a particular day. Duties of a king in particular day. Duties of the king in a particular day. Means what you have to do in a particular day also he says. It is literally today we call it as what? Manual of office procedure, that is office manual procedure. Means literally what you have to do in that particular day, everything he will tell about that in detail. And what he also, this is a very good point, you can write, continue. Kautilya says that resources of the state. Kautilya says that resources of the state or empire, whatever you call it as, resources of the state or empire is not the personal property of the king. Resources of the state or empire is not personal property of the king. It is not the personal property of the king. I think you can easily understand that. What does that mean? That's it. Person is not the personal property of the king. Right? You simply understand what does that mean. Let's say for example, remember we told you have to collect taxes and everything. Now whatever the taxes people have paid, what is it not? That's not your personal property. It belongs to whom? It belongs to the state. It belongs to the empire. Don't assume that it is your personal property. In fact, Weber also more or less says the same. When we'll discuss that later when we discuss. Remember I told you yesterday, Max Weber is in a way kind of father of the theory of bureaucracy. Bureaucracy existed for a long time. Whenever I told you Egyptian, everything, every time it has been there. Very famous theory of bureaucracy was given by Weber. That's why we keep calling it as Weberian bureaucracy, Weberian civil service. Every time we'll use that. That we'll discuss when we discuss Weber in detail. Fine. In general, now you take it as what? Weber also says that. Let's very simple example. Yesterday also I told you as an example I think. Let's assume you are a DC. Imagine you have 200 crore budget in the district. The 200 crore is your personal property or what? No, you can't say that, say I am 200 crore worth. This is not your worth. What is your role here? The resources is given to you so that you use that to implement certain programs or policies or anything. You should not consider it as what? Oh, okay, well now I am 100 crore, 150 crore worth. That is not your personal worth. More or less same, but that's what he's saying. Let's say today you have PM, CMs. Imagine how many lakh crores taxes they collect. But that is what it is not. That's not the CMs or PMs, it is not their personal property. It is the property of the government, state. Same way. Don't take it as your personal property. See, to this extent actually nobody else talks. Even during Mughal era, Delhi Sultanate era or any other kings, more or less what did the king take it as? Whoever is the king, it is their personal property. But Kautilya clearly clearly delineates, differentiates and says that is not your personal property. It is the property of the state, resources of the state. Clear? So that is also in a way very good point that what he kept on saying. The next one. Next, what all does duties? Okay, other aspects we'll write later. Devotee of right. So clarify that below then. King is the sole decision maker. Sole, absolutely individual. King is the sole decision maker. King is the sole decision maker. There are no limits on his powers. Absolutely no limits. King is the sole decision maker. And what is not there? There is no limits on his power. There is no limits on his powers. There is no limits on his powers. He need not consult anybody in taking a decision. There is no limits on his powers. He need not consult anybody while taking or to take a decision. He need not consult anybody to take a decision. Need not consult anybody to take a decision. Fine. But what does Kautilya says? However, according to Kautilya, there should be indirect restrictions on the king. Because you can't put direct restrictions indirectly, either in other ways. However, according to Kautilya, there should be indirect restrictions on the king. There should be indirect restrictions on the king. Indirect restrictions on the king. Right? What is that? Raj Purohit. Obviously, you can take it as what Raj Purohit means. Highest advisor, of course, a religious Brahmin scholar kind of a one. Raj Purohit should be personal advisor to the king. So he is an indirect check. See, whatever Raj Purohit says, it's not like king should always follow. But what is Raj Purohit like here? He is like a check on you. He will guide you. He will tell you what to do, what not to do. You may follow or you may not follow. That's your ultimate wish. Raj Purohit should be the personal, or he is the whatever, personal advisor to the king. Though obviously, what is it not? Though such advisors are not binding. Raj Purohit is the personal advisor to the king, though such advice is not binding. Though such advice is not binding. Though such advice is not binding. I think it's clear, you can easily understand that. Then below that, obviously what? King should be well trained in Dharma Shastra. That's, remember, even before that we wrote. Largely take it as what? Value system, good and bad. King should be well trained in Dharma Shastra. King should be well trained in Dharma Shastra, which itself is what? Which itself will act as an indirect check on the misuse of power. King should be well trained in Dharma Shastra, which itself acts as a check on, misuse of power by the king. So these are all to ensure that he doesn't misuse, which itself acts as a check on the misuse of power by the king. Misuse of the power by the king. Fine. Then below that, king should be advised by a group of mantri. See, even today, mantri means today you call it as minister. At that time, you can take it as kind of advisors to the king. King should be advised by a group of mantri. Group of advisors called mantris. King should be advised by a group of people called mantris. And today, mantri means what actually? Minister. But that's why I clarify there itself. It should not be confused with today's ministers. It should not be confused with. It should not be confused with today's ministers. It should not be confused with today's ministers. Right? Then again, See, even there, you know what he says. Even when Kautilya, again I am clarifying, when you say Kautilya's Arthashastra, he is not describing what the Mauryan Empire was. It is not exactly okay. Whatever he describes it here, don't assume that okay, this is how Chandragupta Maurya's empire was. You should not take it like that. He is already more or less talking about what? How the state should be run. It is not exactly what was there during Chandragupta Maurya era. And so that for your clarification, please write this in margin. In Arthashastra, Kautilya does not describe about, just to clarify, that's why I told you keep some margins. In Arthashastra, Kautilya does not clarify or does not give details about which one? Chandragupta Maurya's empire. In Arthashastra, Kautilya is not describing about which one? Chandragupta Maurya's empire. Kautilya is not describing, giving details about Chandragupta Maurya's empire. About Chandragupta Maurya's empire. What is he talking about then? He is talking about how a state should be administered. That's it. He is talking about how a state should be administered. So any state, how should you run an empire? That's what he is talking about. He is talking about the administration of the state. How a state should be administered. He is talking about how state should be administered. That's it. Clear? That's the core point, you have to keep it in mind. Yeah, then come back. What was he writing about? Group of mantris. See, even here, just listen here how he talks about it. So just look at how pragmatic he was, Kautilya. Means he'll never talk about ethics or values. He says, you should not have just one mantri. Let's say if you have one mantri, Kautilya says, mantri will start feeling over a period of time that okay, king is also one, I am also one. That means what will he over a period of time he start thinking? That means both are equal then. If I can guide the king, so over a period of time what will he think? I can only become the king. That's why remember actually in law and order administration we'll discuss in detail. Remember in polity, I'll just tell you about something called as criminalization of politics. Means at present it is, remember we keep telling that facts, 43% MPs have criminal charges, but that is very simple. Actually criminalization of politics means overall it talks about not about entry of people with criminal background in politics. It is in general about politicians and criminals having a nexus, one or other relationship. Either people in power getting involved in criminal activities or criminals helping the politicians to get to power. That is actually called as criminalization of politics. We'll tell in over a period of time how it evolved. Now what they have identified is that you can say during Indira Gandhi era, largely what happened because in the politics had become competitive. Indira Gandhi had a lot of competitors. New parties had arrived. So what she said, she wanted to win election at any cost. That's why what she took care of, what she take the help of. She took a lot of help of, she in the sense not take it, you can't take it as in general personally, overall during her time Congress party. So they started to take the help of criminals because the only goal was what? Win elections at any cost. Threaten your competitors, distribute money, whatever it is, remember we keep telling misuse of the money and muscle power to win the election. Fine, this is largely during Indira Gandhi era. But during Rajiv Gandhi era, it took a different turn. The turn was what? They started to believe, the criminals started to believe that, okay, I am safe as long as my boss is in power. Let's say my boss who loses the next election, other person will come to power. What will that person make sure? That person will make sure that I will go to jail. So fine, this is the insecurity that I have. I'm not sure. Maybe if my boss is in power, I am safe. What if the boss is not in power? And two, they start to believe, if I can help my boss to win, why can't I win then? That is what they call it as politicization of criminals. Politicization of criminals means what? Actually, that is what you call it as people with criminal background getting elected as MLAs and MPs is called as politicization of criminals. This is actually in 1980s and 90s it started. Got an idea, right? We'll discuss in detail. Because earlier criminals helped the politicians to win the elections. But they started to realize over a period of time they are safe, they will not go to jail as long as what? As long as your boss in power. Because if the boss is in power, what will he make sure? He will make sure that the police does not arrest you. He will put pressure on the police. He will make sure that the police doesn't investigate properly. Because if police has to arrest you, they want some investigation. So they'll make sure that whoever is closer to the boss, they will only become SIs and inspectors. That's what they technically called as politicization of police. Police became the most politicized organization during Indira Gandhi era. Because without controlling police, how will you control system? Control them. So put whoever is in favor of you in the position. They should not investigate anything, or any investigation that happens, he has to be in favor of the MLA or minister. Fine. But what if the other party comes to power? That other party will have some other criminals helping them. But if you are a criminal who has helped other party, you are gone. That is when they try to realize, so why should we help others to win? Why can't I win? Means what I am trying to link is that that's what same Kautilya says, if you make one person as the mantri, over a period of time he will feel that if I can guide a king, why can't I be the king? And king is also individual, I am also an individual, same. So that means conflict will arise. That's why he says you should not have just one person as mantri. Then he says you should also not have two people as mantri, because he says if you make two people as mantri, over a period of time they will get together so that they can have a revolt against the king. And he also says you should not have too many people as mantris. Let's say 8 people, 10 people, he says you should also not have that many people. Because if he says too many people, if they are mantris, the confidentiality will be compromised. Because imagine how many secret issues you have to discuss. If you have too many people as mantris, confidentiality is gone. Confidentiality means, understand, right? You have to keep a lot of things as secret. That will be gone. That's why he clearly says you should have 3 to 4 people as mantris, so that they should fight among themselves. If you have 3 to 4 people, 4 people getting them together is not so easy. One or other person will be in favor of the king. So that person will act as your informant. Even if other 2 or 3 get together, even before they plan something, the other person will inform you. See, that's what he says. He will never talk about ethics. He will talk about how to manage things in reality. That's what even today actually any PM or CM does the same. Have you seen? So in his Council of Ministers, what will the CM make sure? CM makes sure that his people should be there. 30-40% at least or more than that should be his people. So that what will happen? Things will be under your control. 50% MLA should be under the control of CM, or else the CM will not be CM. Anytime they can rebel against you. These are all tactics which has always been used. Look at how PM Modi controls it. Literally, have you seen in the last 10 years any minister countering PM? I mean, if you had seen Manmohan Singh era, you should have every minister used to openly tell the differences with Manmohan Singh. Can you imagine that today? Can any BJP MP openly say that I have ideological differences, my ideas is different, my vision of India is a bit different from Prime Minister Modi? Can anybody dare to say it? Because that's also a kind of power tactic. You should keep all of them under your control. Then literally people will start feeling that okay, Modi is the super king, because that's what is the image now. Modi means what he has image. He can do anything and everything is the image today, because literally it is shaped like that. Is he in reality or not? You can't be in reality, but the image is that. Because if anybody continuously talks about or counters Modi, what is the message that people will get? People will get a message that okay, things are not under your control. There are a lot of differences within your team. To make sure that differences are not there, they will control. More or less same is what he is saying. Understood? I clarify that. These are all too much of details, but you have to understand this. Right? Yeah, this particular chapter, whatever we are discussing, in Aribam they have given, but it's not very detailed. Remember yesterday I told you one other book, Indian Administration by, look at it, yesterday we have written a source, Indian Administration by, which one? Arora and Goel. So this is in Arora and Goel, this level of depth is there. Aribam, they have just given whatever is matter for exam, because if you only study that, you will not understand Kautilya as a whole. That's why I am just making it a little more broad. Clear? Yeah, come back. So whatever you mentioned, the group of mantris, yeah, clarify there. According to Kautilya, there should be around 3 to 4, maximum 5. According to Kautilya, there should be around 3 to 4 mantri. There should be around 3 to 4 mantri. They should be around 3 to 4 mantri. Fine. To be more precise, you can say if there is only one mantri, what will you do? Controlling him will become difficult. If there is only one mantri, controlling him will be difficult for king. If there is only one mantri, controlling him will become difficult for the king. If there are two mantris, what they may do? They may conspire against the king any time. If there are two mantris, they may conspire against the king any time. They may conspire against the king any time. So that's why it is mantri partial. They again clarify below. King may or may not consult these mantris. It's not like Council of Ministers, you have to always take the decisions, nothing like that. King may or may not consult these mantris. King may or may not consult these mantris. May or may not may not consult these mantris, and obviously what about their advice? Whatever they tell is what? Their advice is not binding on the king. It's ultimately you. Their advice is not binding on the king. Their advice is not binding on the king. Right? This is in general, he talks about what are the duties, what are the restrictions. Clear? Yeah. So go through that in detail. Any doubts, please ask, or else we'll go to famous theory of his called, not theory, kind of famous subtopic. Two famous subtopics are there. One is Saptanga theory, another one is Mandala theory. We'll start with that. See if you can find the flow till here. Okay, or if you take some 5 minutes break if you want, go back, in case you want to go use the restrooms or anything, go back and come back. We'll continue till 10. At least Saptanga theory will finish. Few other topics will continue tomorrow. Okay. Next topic, what you have to take it as is Saptanga theory or 7 Prakritis, means 7 organs. Saptanga theory or 7 Prakritis. And means what Kautilya identifies is that 7 people are very important. 7, you can call it as institutions, organs are very important in the state. That's what he identifies. Of course, very simple. Just mention once, we'll discuss that. Obvious, the first most important is what? King. He uses the word Swamin. In some instances, he also uses the word called as Rajan for the king. Obvious, the king is the most important person. The second word he uses is called as, you don't have to write this because anyhow we'll discuss in detail. The second word he uses is called as Amatya. The third word he uses is called as Janapada. The fourth word he uses is called as Durga. Fifth word is called as Danda. Sixth is called as Mitra. The one most important we forgot. Which one? Kosha. So more or less it is very logical itself. Swamin means according to what you call as Kautilya Saptanga theory, Swamin is the most important person. Swamin obviously is what? King. King is everything. Around king, everything else will circulate. And so that's what we have discussed in detail. Who is the king? What is the origin? This, that, everything we have discussed. Second most important, not exactly, I mean, you should not take it as an order. Means it's not like, okay, this is the first, second most important, third most important, fourth, it's not like that. But the core point, Swami is just the most important one. The rest all are equally important only. So Amatya means you have to take it as largely. Again, the meaning of Amatya differs according to, I mean, in the Arthashastra in one or other circumstances. The core point you have to take, Amatya means top level officers. The topmost level officers are called as Amatya. Understood? So top level officers means what? It can include Mantri, remember yesterday with all of them, Mantris, and we still use so many words, we'll refer that. Yukta, Upayukta, like that, head of the departments. Mantri, you can more or less take it as what? Kind of advisors to the king. Fine? And there used to be other officers called as Yukta. We'll write all of them. Yukta. What is the other word? Upayukta. They are all not part of organs as a whole, but just to keep it in mind, we'll write them. Yukta means you can take it as head of the department. Upayukta means what? Above, I mean there's a subordinate to them. So associate, assistant, whatever you call them as. Then below level officers. You can take the head of the department, mid level officers, lower level officers, or group A, group B, group C, group D kind of a one. Understood? These yuktas, mantri, all of them together are called as what? Amatya. So Amatya means in general take it as what? The top level officers who will work under the king. And so that is called as Amatya. Second organ. Third organ, as the name is, look at it, Janapada. Janapada means if in case ancient medieval India is done, you will understand. Janapada means largely what? Big empires, territory. So that is what is Janapada means here, territory. And of course, as I told, what Kautilya says, you should have as big a territory as possible. And what you should also have there, you should have as much resources as possible. Because if you don't have resource, you can't manage things. That is Janapada. Understood? Because only if you have that, you can collect taxes. Only if you have that, you can manage anything. And whatever Kautilya, but practically again what he says, if you are financially not strong, he says, you cannot maintain the empire. And if you are not financially strong, others will easily come and conquer you. This is actually, in reality, it is very true. When you say the idea of democracy, all those things, they may not tell because that's an utopian idea, ideal things. In reality, obviously, you have to be financially, militarily very, very strong, or else you can't manage things. You take India also for that matter. Imagine what if India is not militarily and financially strong? Nobody will care for us in the global era. Now, relatively, if you have seen in the last, post 1991 reforms, India is valued a lot in the global era, in global platforms. The reason is what? Because we became economically very strong. Till 1991, we were not economically strong. We might be world's largest democracy, everything, but that's not our credit, right? Because its population is more, you are considered as largest democracy. It doesn't mean it's your credit. So you look at US. Why US is globally so strong? Because they are financially strong, point number 1. 2, militarily strong. If you have that, automatically your value will keep increasing. More or less same context he says, you should have that level of, is there any gas leak kind of even? So system there are issues, huh? Okay, fine. So then next one, Kosha, as the name says, is obviously what it is referring to, which one? Treasury, revenue. So as the overall, what he says, 1/6 of the people's produce should be collected as tax, or 1/6 of the overall whatever they earn, and that maintain it. And he also says, in fact, what he goes on to say, after Swami, he says, Kosha is the most important, he says, because if Kosha is not there, everything else you can't manage. So let's say you don't have very strong Kosha, how will you maintain Danda? Danda means what in general? Army. Imagine, of course, just how I told you, militarily you have to strong, means you have to manage that level of army. If you want to manage that level of army, what do you have to do? You have to pay them. How do you pay them? Kosha. If Kosha is not there, how will you manage your army? It's impossible. Understood? Same way civil service. Yesterday also I told you, even basic point is what? Civil servants, Kautilya says, should get almost 1/4 of the total taxes money should go as salaries to the officers. Now imagine if you want to pay them to that extent, what you should have? You should have Kosha to that extent, or else you can't manage. And let's say if you don't have that level of Kosha, you can't pay civil servants well. If you don't pay them well, what will they do? They'll misuse their power, they'll become more corrupt. Automatically overall society itself will get disturbed. That's why he will never say about financially, you don't have to think about finances, money doesn't matter, he will never say that. He says money matters a lot, which reality everybody knows, but in general nobody says that. Because you look at Indian value system, nobody says that I want to become rich. Everybody says service, because that is what you have to say. You can't say I have to become rich because society will not value you. But he says Kosha matters a lot. That's what he is, pragmatic thinker. Then obviously Durga means what? Fort. You should have a very strong protection. Within that he identifies so many things. Where should you have fort? What kind of things also he says? One of the things he says is that he uses a word called as Vana Durga. Means if your empire or if your fort, especially you can take it as palace or kind of a fort, or in general overall, if it is surrounded by, he says, which one? Forest on all sides, you have a higher level of protection because others can't penetrate your empire so easily. Or he says another one, Vana Durga. Here Vana Durga means, Vana Durga means forest. Dhanuvan he says. Dhanuvan means here, you should not take it as directly, Dhana means for what, money or anything. He says if your palace, Durga, is surrounded by deserts on all sides, desert, again you are safe then. Because others cannot penetrate and come and attack against you so easily. He also says another one called as Audik. Audik means, let's say if your empire is in and around surrounded by, Audik means hills here, mountains, again you are safe. Because someone to come cross the mountains and attack you, not so easy for them. You will be safe. Similarly he says what? Jal means what? If it is surrounded by river, waters on all sides, again you are safe. That's why if you look at ancient medieval era, more or less remember, even for Mauryas, what is the capital? Patna. Because Patna is in and around surrounded by water. And Mauryan empire was in and around Patna. More or less probably because Chandragupta Maurya might have followed the Kautilya. That's a political history. I don't know in detail because you may have to go for history and all those that. But in general you can assume. Why did they choose that kind of places? Because you will be safe. Protection is more. That is Durga. And Danda, as I just now told, army. Mitra means what? International relations. As I told yesterday, what is he always say? He'll always say that you should make good relationship with those who are strong enough. Because only if they are strong enough, they can come to your help in your times of difficulty. Let's say you have very good friends. Friends means here take it as interest relation, but they are not strong enough. How will they help you in difficult times? They can't help you. They may be good enough, agreed. They may not threaten you, but how will they help you? Apply to Indian context today. That's why do you think pre-1991 largely we were very good relationship we had with USSR? Because at that time we used to follow largely socialism and aware ideology, and a kind of sync was there. After communism ended, and you might, at least if you have a brief point, Cold War era, all those things, then obviously capitalism became very strong. We became more closer to whom then? US. Because another superpower. And anything wrong happens, US can come and rescue us. How will other weak countries help you? They can't help. So that's why China will think a lot to attack us today, because we are very close to US. And so that's a kind of game they play. That's what he says, Mitra. Fine. And each and every organ is equally important. As I told, the most important is, second most to an extent you can say, Kosha. Because on Kosha everything else will matter. So this is a brief called as Saptanga theory, or you can call it as what? 7 Prakritis. Very brief. And then these officers, we'll come to that. The officers will write later. That's a typical, we'll take it as what? Personnel administration. Let's write these ones first. So the heading Saptanga theory or 7 Prakritis. And that, start the brief. According to Kautilya, according to Kautilya, 7 functionaries, organs, 7 functionaries, are important. 7 functionaries are important in efficient administration of the state. 7 functionaries are important in the efficient administration of the state. In the efficient administration or functioning of the state. Under that, first one, Swamin or Rajan. Obviously what? King. Swamin or Rajan, that is king. And what is it obviously? He is the most important functionary. 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 Fine. And entire other organs depends on whom? Effective functioning of other organs depends on king. He is the most important functionary. Effective functioning of other organs depends on this organ, depends on the king. Effective functioning of other organs depends on the king. Effective functioning of other organs depends on the king. Clear? That is 1. 2. Amatya. Now what does it largely refer to? It refers to top level officers of the state, of the empire. Amatya. It refers to top level officers, functionaries of the empire. Top level officers of the empire. Right? What can it include? It includes mantri. It includes mantri as well as who? Yukta, that is heads of the departments. Mantri means what? You should take it as here. Mantri you take it as what? Advisors to the king. Yukta you take it as what? Head of the department, means in charge of implementation. It includes mantri, that is advisors to the king, as well as yukta, that is head of the departments. Head of the department. That's why even look at it today, even today we use word like lokayukta. Kind of yukta is the same word. Fine? Okay, that is amatya. Then janapada. Very simple one. That's why we are starting with paper 2, so that you get adjusted to the administration and all those things, then we'll link back to theory. Because most of the times what we observe is directly if we start theory, normally students get confused because they can't directly link to Indian administration. So that's why we are just trying to manage so that you can link back better. Transition should be more smooth. Janapada means what in general? Take it as what? Territory. Janapada, territory. Obviously what Kautilya says? According to him, Janapada should be, or territory should be, according to him, territory should be as large as possible. Territory should be as large as possible. It should be as large as possible, and what it should also have? It should have adequate resources. It should be as large as possible, and it should have adequate resources. It should have adequate resources. And it should have adequate resources. Fine. Then which one? Kosha, treasury. Kosha, treasury. Fine. According to Kautilya, what is it? According to Kautilya, it is the second most important organ after king. According to Kautilya, it is the second most important organ. It is the second most important organ after king. Second most important second most important organ, functionary after king. Is obviously what he says. Or write that point if you want. 1/6 of the total produce should be collected as the taxes. 1/6 of the total produce. 1/6 of the total produce should be collected as taxes. 1/6 of the total produce should be collected as taxes. Should be collected as taxes. Right? And what is this? Only if Kosha is well maintained. Only if Kosha is big enough, well maintained. Only if Kosha is well maintained. What will be good then? Other organs can be maintained well. Only if Kosha is large enough, well maintained, other organs can be taken care of. Other organs can be taken care of. Of course, there is a finance minister also. That all we'll discuss tomorrow. Samahartha we call it, and that we'll do it. Then Durga. Durga means obviously what? Fort. Durga, fort. Fortified territory. Obviously, why is it necessary? A strong fort is necessary for the protection, especially for whom? King. A strong fort is necessary. A strong fort is necessary for the protection of the king, or you can say capital kind of a one. Necessary for the protection of the king or capital. Fine. And what he suggests? Natural factors should be taken advantage. Natural factors should be taken as an advantage in constructing the forts. Natural factors should be considered as an advantage in constructing the fort. First one, what is this? One Durga means what? As the name says, surrounded by forests on all sides. One Durga. Fort surrounded by forest on all sides. Surrounded by forests on all sides. Surrounded by forest on all the sides. One Durga. Fine. Then Parvat. Look at the word itself. Parvat means what then? That's it. Surrounded by mountains, hills on all the sides. Surrounded by mountains or hills on all the sides. When that is Parvat. Then 3. Audik, surrounded by water on all sides. Whatever during that time the words will be Audik, surrounded by. Jal also the same. Different words they use. Jal also is the same one, same word. But he uses that famous word called as Audik. It's called as Jaldurga only. Audik, surrounded by water on all sides. Then, same word, don't get confused. It means the same. Then Dhanuvan, surrounded by desert on all sides. Though Dhanuvan you can't directly link to desert, but it actually means the same. So whatever during his times those words would have been there. Now you can't link it. Dhanuvan, surrounded by desert on all sides. Clear? That is fourth angle, Durga. Then comes your Danda, means you can take it as army. Right? Obvious it is. Why is it necessary? A strong army is essential to protect against any external threat. A strong army is necessary. Strong army is necessary to protect against any external threat. He is necessary to protect against any external threat. Protect against any external threat. Right? And obviously what he says? A strong Kosha is necessary to maintain a big army. A strong Kosha is necessary to maintain big army. Because if you don't maintain big army, you can't have big empire. You can't be strong enough. A strong Kosha is necessary to maintain big army. And then Mitra. You can take it as what? Ally or friend. Ally or friend. A-double-L-Y. Ally or friend. Obviously here what does that mean? According to Kautilya, good relationship should be maintained with those states, those empires. Good relationship should be maintained with those empire or states which are strong enough. Good relationship which should be maintained with those states or kings or whatever you call it as empires who are strong enough. So that what they'll do? Mitra should come to the help, should come to your help, whatever. Mitra should come to our help when there is difficulty. Mitra should be someone who can help you when there is difficulty. Mitra should come to your help when there is difficulty. Fair? That is broadly your, in general one, seven Prakritis. If you want, this is not very important, okay, we'll broadly take it as the next broader topic. What you have to understand is for the subheading, personnel administration. How the officers were administered, was there any kind of examination or anything, that we need to discuss. Personnel administration. I'll brief it, writing part, everything, we'll take care of it tomorrow. Personnel administration. Obviously, as mentioned in which one? As mentioned in Arthashastra, personnel administration. Means what? Civil service related, officers related. Clear? Obviously, just now I told you, Amatya means what? The top level officers. Under that, you will have what? Yukta, Upayukta, Tatpurusha. Categories. You can take it as today, but remember we keep calling Group A officer, Group B officer, more or less like that. Yukta, Yukta, head of the department. Below them, Upayukta. So, Yukta, Upayukta, Tatpurusha. Lower level officers. And what Kautilya says, that if anybody has to become a civil servant, or in other words, what officer, he says, you have to consider three factors in them. One is called as Prajna, second one is called as, first is Sattva, Prajna, Vakya Shakti. Actually, even today we make use of this. Look at the word, he says, for you to become a civil servant, you should have three characteristics. One is Sattva. Sattva means, take it as what actually? Passion, energy. When Prajna means what? Take it as largely knowledge. Consciousness, but largely you have to take it as knowledge. Vakya Shakti means what? Communication skill. Actually, even today, even if you go to the personality test in civil service exam, same things are tested. Knowledge anyhow will more broadly get tested in what? Knowledge broadly will get tested in your prelims and mains. Your energy, your passion to work, your passion to find a solution, your innovativeness, creativity, and your communication skills. Obviously, where do they test? That is where it is tested actually in your personality test even today. So, one or other way this matters even today, but at that time he had told about it. And he says, if you don't have these characters, he says, don't take them into service. Right? Similarly, what he says, the next one, he says, those who lack financial discipline, he says, don't take them into service. Means those who can't manage money properly, don't take them. Because remember, I told yesterday also, civil servants, he says, are inherent to get corrupt. So by definition, chances of corruption are more. If you take those people who are financially indisciplined into service, then means imagine that then the level, degree of corruption then. Already you have a high chance of getting corrupt. And what he says, if you have financial indiscipline, obviously, let's say you have very high greed for money. And if you are made civil servant, what will you do then? Then there is no end. Fine, that's what he uses, again different words for it. He uses words like so these are the words he uses. Again, it will take a lot of time for you to get, what do you call this, by hearting all these words. Understand the concept in the beginning. By hearting, you can take care of it later when you more and more you revise. Mula hara means what he says is that someone who has absolutely spent whatever he has inherited, means whatever that you inherit from your parents or anything, if you have already spent all of that, that means what does it again show? You are financially indisciplined. If you have already squandered, means what? You have already spent whatever you have got it from your parents. Then Tadatvika means someone who earns, someone who spends whatever he earns. Let's say you are getting whatever amount of salary, you are spending each and everything. That means you don't have the skill of savings or investments or anything. So if you, that means already what you have then? You have a very high tendency to spend more or greedy nature. Means your expenditure is more, consumerism kind of a one. Kadarya means what he says, someone who is very miser, who doesn't know how to have, what financial literacy is not there. Fine, and he says all of them, none of them you should take away. Means they are financially, even if you have very high greed for money, even if you have spent whatever that you have already earned or already inherited from your parents, or you don't know how to double or how to invest or how to save, don't take them into service because they lack financial discipline. Now these two people, what they can't do? They will become highly corrupt. What this people, this person who is a miser, what he can't do? He can't increase your revenue. He is not worth to you. He will not increase. Let's say as an employee, what will any boss look for? Someone who can increase the profit of the company. If you can't increase the profit of the company, then what is the use of you then? More or less that kind of an angle. Actually, if you can link back, remember in constitution we tell qualifications of MPs. Even there I tell you that, I will not get this to this level of detail. We say some word called as undischarged insolvent. So what Constitution in 102 says? One who is an undischarged insolvent should be disqualified to be an MP. More or less same angle only. Because why are they telling that those who lack financial discipline should not become MPs? Same logic, because if you don't have financial discipline and if you become MP, obviously what will you do? You will misuse all the money. More or less same logic. If you don't have this, don't get them into service. Understood? Then he says, see, during Kautilya era or in Arthashastra, there is no separate examination process, like how you have civil service exam now or whatever exams, like that exams are not there. In fact, India is one of the first country to have a merit-based examination. But that is during British era. China used to have much before us. Means globally, China is considered as the first country to come up with the open competition merit-based exam. Like how you are writing civil service exam, that kind of an exam, who came up with first in the world? In the world history, they have given the credit to China. Second, they give it to Prussia. Prussia, you don't have a country now. Prussia means largely now it is merged with Germany. So Prussia means part of Germany now. Remember I told you in Max Weber we keep telling, Max Weber was from Prussia. And if you have heard Karl Marx, remember Karl Marx was also from Prussia. Today you don't have Prussia, Prussia was an empire. Now they have all merged them and made it as part of what? Germany. Remember in polity we keep talking unification of Germany led by Bismarck. When Bismarck united, this Prussia was an empire. Most important empire was Prussia. Now it is part of what? Germany as a country. Prussia was the second country or the second empire they tell who introduced open competition merit-based exam. Third was actually in the global history India. India not during Kautilya era or all of the things. India under British rule. Remember in maybe if in case 1853 Act allowed open competition for the first time. So that was inspired from Prussia and all of that. That all will come to that later. Fine. The basic point as of now what you have to look at it. In Arthashastra, there is no separate examination for recruitment of civil servants. But there is a kind of test. Test means not knowledge-based test, other kind of test. Like for example, he says that do a test called as Dharma Pada. Dharma means again, don't take it as religion. Dharma for a long time in India is called as what? Value system. Good and bad, right and wrong, that kind of a one. So he says conduct a Dharma Pada test. Where, what will you test here? You will test the values of the, like ethics test kind of a one. You will test the values of the person. And what Kautilya says, those who clear, make them as magistrate. Magistrate means what? Judge. Make these people as judges. Because when you, judge means what obviously? You should be very good in understanding, okay, that person has done a good or wrong. That's why make them as judges. The second he says, Artha Pada. Artha means again what? What is their greed for money? You have to test. How much greed they have for money, power, finances. Now he says only those who clear this, make them as revenue officers. Revenue means what? Tax collection. Because logically it is, you look logically, let's say you have more money, hunger for money, greed for money. And if you are made in charge of tax collection, just imagine and think what will be the impact. So that's why, so Artha Pada, those who should be, you are testing their greediness for money. Make them as revenue officer. 3 he says, look at the word itself. What is it? Bhaya. Bhaya Pada means what? You should test whether this person is afraid or how loyal is he to the state or king. Will he or can he conspire against the king? Means, does he have that level of hunger for power that he can go against the king itself? And it means, in other words, here what are you testing? You are testing one's loyalty to the king, one's loyalty to the empire. Now, whoever passes Bhayapada, make him as officers who are very close to the king, like king's security guard, king's personal attendants, in charge of the palace security, make these people. Because logically you think, let's say you are not loyal to the king, and if you are made in charge of the palace security or king security, what will happen then? That's why loyalty to the king should test Bhayapada. Then he says another test called as Kamapada. Here Kama means you should take it as what broadly? Your attraction to the worldly desires. Remember Kama, Krodha, Madama, whatever they tell, like that. You should not take it as only related to the physical angle, it's broadly related to what? Worldly desires. It can be fame, it can be publicity, it can be power, it can be anything. Now he says only those who clear that, you put them in entertainment industry. Entertainment means here, because obviously if you have heard the history and all those things, kings used to encourage so many writers, so many painters, so many all of them, the dancers, this, that, everything they should encourage. They used to encourage art and culture. Only those who pass this, get them into those positions. See, this is actually according to your skills only. Those who are good in so and so skill, you should put them. It's actually kind of what scientific recruitment we tell. Remember yesterday I told you a thinker called as Taylor. Taylor also says that, uses that kind of a slogan. He says, right person at the right job, he says. It is actually same, right person at right job. But of course he doesn't talk about that in that level of depth. Taylor calls it as right person, right job. You should recruit them according to their skill, train them and put them in exact position. Same idea is this. Understood? And then as I told yesterday also, I mean even I think I have already told you multiple times, 1/4 of the tax give the salaries for these people. If in case let's say you have not collected that level of taxes, he says, you can also give them land grants. Land grant means what? Some area you make them in charge. Let them collect the revenue from that land. Keep a part of the revenue. Rest you pay to the remember zamindari system. It's more or less same kind of one. He says, ideally you should pay them either in the form of cash or kind. If in case there is a shortage of it, what do you do? Give them in the form of land grants also. But normally cash. And he also says, whoever loses the life, means whoever dies when they are in service, let's say while fighting in war or anything, the civil servant died, officer died. He says the king should take care of their wife and family. In other words, it's a kind of what? Pension system. Though not exactly pension, foundation of the pension. Those who have died while working for the king or the state, the king should take care of the welfare of their wife as well as family. Foundation of the pension system in India. And so all of that he talks about it. But there is no separate training process. Probably Kautilya might have assumed this itself is a kind of training. This itself you're testing their skill. That's why like how you have Labasna now, this, that, everything. Training is a detailed process. We'll discuss in your personal administration. So but remember, have you heard if in India famously training is criticized as a paid holiday. Paid holiday means what? You are paid. You go there and you don't learn anything. You just meet your old batchmates and then discuss everything, ask them how they made good money, how they are getting promotions better, how they are in better things. You come back, you get promoted, you keep going up. Famously it is criticized as a paid holiday in India. Kautilya does not talk about training separately. Probably because what? This itself is a kind of training. So Labasna, NPA, nothing is there. Clear? And then so many other things he takes care of, promotion, this, that, everything king will take care, Dharmaniyam I have told you, all of that is part of your personnel administration. And then few other officers are also there, we'll discuss them, that are we'll take care of it tomorrow. And then few people were, I don't know, among you or others were talking about, sir, is the early bird offer still on, all those things they were asking. Okay, fine, you can, till this week you can go anytime if you want to join, you can go. Tell them that Manjunath sir has told, they'll give you that whatever that early bird offer, because I think they had mentioned what, March 25th or something as the end date, because few guys were time and again asking it. Okay, fine, you can go and ask them.